I'm Pastor Grace, and I'm afraid Chaplain Tony is down with a migraine today, so let's keep her in prayer. And as we start, this is scrolling through the scriptures, so let's see if I can do this without her today. I welcome everyone. If you've not joined us before, please just click on the links on Flora Presbyterian on the Facebook page, and you will see the links for all the different lessons through Genesis, beginning with Genesis 1. And we are now on, last week we talked about Genesis 37 and 38, and so, but we are now going to listen to Genesis 37 and 38. But there was so much packed in there, so much study listed in there. So I hope you will, if you've not watched last week's Bible study, I hope you will go back and watch that. But now we're going to listen to chapter 37, and I hope you will enjoy. So I'm not going to stop it. We'll just listen to it straight through. So bear with me as I set up our audio Bible.
Now Jacob dwelt in the land where his father was a stranger, in the land of Canaan. This is the history of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brothers, and the lad was with the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives. And Joseph brought a bad report of them to his father. Now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age. Also, he made him a tunic of many colors. But when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, they hated him and could not speak peaceably to him. Now Joseph had a dream, and he told it to his brothers, and they hated him even more. So he said to them,
"Please, hear this dream which I have dreamed. There we were, binding sheaves in the field. Then, behold, my sheaf arose and also stood upright. And indeed your sheaves stood all around and bowed down to my sheaf."
And his brothers said to him,
"Shall you indeed reign over us?
Or shall you indeed have dominion over us?"
So they hated him even more for his dreams and for his words. Then he dreamed still another dream and told it to his brothers.
"Look, I have dreamed another dream, and this time the sun, the moon, and the 11 stars bowed down to me."
So he told it to his father and his brothers, and his father rebuked him.
"What is this dream that you have dreamed? Shall your mother and I and your brothers indeed come to bow down to the earth before you?"
And his brothers envied him, but his father kept the matter in mind. Then his brothers went to feed their father's flock in Shechem. And Israel said to Joseph,
"Are not your brothers feeding the flock in Shechem? Come, I will send you to them."
So he said to him,
"Here I am."
"Please go and see if it is well with your brothers and well with the flocks, and bring back word to me."
So he sent him out of the valley of Hebron, and he went to Shechem. Now a certain man found him, and there he was, wandering in the field.
What are you seeking?"
"I am seeking my brothers. Please, tell me where they are feeding their flocks."
"They have departed from here, for I heard them say, 'Let us go to Dothan.'"
So Joseph went after his brothers, and found them in Dothan. Now when they saw him afar off, even before he came near them, they conspired against him to kill him.
"Look,
This dreamer is coming.
Come, therefore, let us now kill him and cast him into some pit, and we shall say, some wild beast has devoured him. We shall see what will become of his dreams.
But Reuben heard it, and he delivered him out of their hands.
Let us not kill him. Shed no blood, but cast him into this pit which is in the wilderness. And do not lay a hand on him.
That he might deliver him out of their hands, and bring him back to his father. So it came to pass, when Joseph had come to his brothers, that they stripped Joseph of his tunic, the tunic of many colors that was on him. And they took him and cast him into a pit. And the pit was empty, there was no water in it. And they sat down to eat a meal. Then they lifted their eyes and looked, and there was a company of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead with their camels, bearing spices, balm, and myrrh, on their way to carry them down to Egypt. So Judah said to his brothers,
What profit is there if we kill our brother and conceal his blood? Come and let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him, for he is our brother and our flesh.
And his brothers listened. Then Midianite traders passed by. So the brothers pulled Joseph up and lifted him out of the pit, and sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 shekels of silver. And they took Joseph to Egypt. Then Reuben returned to the pit, and indeed Joseph was not in the pit, and he tore his clothes, and he returned to his brothers.
The lad is no more. And I, where shall I go?
So they took Joseph's tunic, killed a kid of the goats, and dipped the tunic in the blood. Then they sent the tunic of many colors, and they brought it to their father.
We have found this. Do you know whether it is your son's tunic or not?
And he recognized it.
It is my son's tunic. A wild beast has devoured him. Without doubt, Joseph is torn to pieces.
Then Jacob tore his clothes, put sackcloth on his waist, and mourned for his son many days. And all his sons and all his daughters arose to comfort him. But he refused to be comforted.
For I shall go down into the grave to my son in mourning.
Thus his father wept for him. Now the Midianites had sold him in Egypt to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh and captain of the guard.
All right, just a brief overview of what we taught last week is that, remember, the Ishmaelites are cousins through Abraham. Isaac and Ishmael were half-brothers. And so these are selling them to their cousins, selling Joseph to their cousins. And Reuben was hoping to rescue him from the pit, but Judah has decided, let's sell him. Let's get some money out of the deal. And so Joseph is sold into slavery. This is all a setup for getting the Israelites into Egypt, and just as God had prophesied that they would be in a foreign land for 400 years and would be slaves for that length of time, and then God would rescue them. So this is the setup for that entire venture, part of Israelites' history. Now we come into 38, and some have thought that chapter 38 is an interruption of the Joseph story, but actually the Joseph story is kind of an interruption of the story of the promised seed of Abraham, the promised seed that was promised to Eve, that someone would come to take care of the sins that would redeem the world through the line of a seed of Eve, a seed of Noah, of Shem, of Abraham, of Isaac and Jacob, and now we are going to understand that it will come through Judah. So this is how we find the line of Judah. So this is that story.
It came to pass at that time that Judah departed from his brothers and visited a certain Adullamite whose name was Hira. And Judah saw there a daughter of a certain Canaanite whose name was Shua. And he married her and went into her. So she conceived and bore a son. And he called his name She conceived again and bore a son. And she called his name Onan. And she conceived yet again and bore a son and called his name Shelah. He was at Chezib when she bore him. Then Judah took a wife for his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. But Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord killed him. And Judah said to Onan,
Go in to your brother's wife and marry her, and raise up an heir to your brother.
But Onan knew that the heir would not be his. And it came to pass, when he went in to his brother's wife, that he omitted on the ground, lest he should give an heir to his brother. And the thing which he did displeased the Lord. Therefore he killed him also. Then Judah said to Tamar, his daughter-in-law,
Remain a widow in your father's house till my son Shelah is grown, lest he also die like his brothers.
And Tamar went and dwelt in her father's house. Now in the process of time, the daughter of Shua, Judah's wife, died. And Judah was comforted, and went up to his sheep shearers at Timnah, he and his friend Hira the Adullamite. And it was told Tamar, Look, your father-in-law is going up to Timnah to shear his sheep. So she took off her widow's garments, covered herself with a veil, and wrapped herself, and sat in an open place which was on the way to Timnah. For she saw that Shelah was grown, and she was not given to him as a wife. When Judah saw her, he thought she was a harlot, because she had covered her face. Then he turned to her by the way.
Please let me come in to you.
For he did not know that she was his daughter-in-law.
What will you give me that you may come in to me?
I will send a young goat from the flock.
Will you give me a pledge till you send it?
What pledge shall I give you?
Your signet and cord and your staff that is in your hand.
Then he gave them to her, and went into her, and she conceived by him. So she arose and went away, and laid aside her veil, and put on the garments of her widowhood. And Judah sent the young goat by the hand of his friend, the Adullamite, to receive his pledge from the woman's hand. But he did not find her. Then he asked the men of that place,
Where is the harlot who was openly by the roadside?
There was no harlot in this place.
So he returned to Judah.
I cannot find her. Also, the men of the place said there was no harlot in this place.
Let her take them for herself, lest we be shamed. For I sent this young goat, and you have not found her.
And it came to pass, about 3 months after, that Judah was told,
Tamar, your daughter-in-law, has played the harlot. Furthermore, she is with child by harlotry.
Bring her out, and let her be burned.
When she was brought out, she sent to her father-in-law.
By the man to whom these belong, I am with child. Please determine whose these are, the signet and cord and staff.
So Judah acknowledged them.
She has been more righteous than I, because I did not give her to Shelah, my son.
And he never knew her again. Now it came to pass, at the time for giving birth, that behold, twins were in her womb. And so it was, when she was giving birth, that the one put out his hand, and the midwife took a scarlet thread and bound it on his hand.
This one came out first.
Then it happened, as he drew back his hand, that his brother came out unexpectedly.
How did you break through? This breach be upon you.
Therefore his name was called Perez. Afterward his brother came out who had the scarlet thread on his hand, and his name was called Zerah.
Okay, so we have twins once again. We had the twins of Jacob and Esau, and now the twins of Perez and Zerah. And we'll see later that the promised line comes through Perez. But this can all be just a little bit confusing in keeping up with all of these names. Now, if you'll remember, we talked about this sheet, and I think it was yellow last week, and I reprinted it. Instead of having a copy of a copy of a copy, this is the original. And again, if you will call the number on the screen at either church, and we'll be happy to send you a copy of this, or you can go online. I got this online at conformingtojesus.com, and you can get this printed out. It is the genealogy of Abraham. So it's a lovely chart, and I just have a gel pen here, and I'm just going to help you go through. So Michelle, if you could help focus in a little bit on our sheet here, and let's go through some of the more significant brothers' names. Okay. So Abraham, and we have his brother Nahor and Haran. Haran died, and so Abraham took care of Lot. And then, but Nahor, down through his line, comes Laban and Rebekah. Abraham, through his wife Sarah, has Isaac, and Isaac marries Rebekah. So they are first cousins. All right? But we still have Ishmael and Isaac. Those are the two key brothers in this line. Abraham later marries after Sarah has died and has other children, and while they are significant in God's eyes, they do not have significance for this lesson. So, but Ishmael and Isaac. Now then, as we go down through, we will see that Isaac and Rebekah have twins, Esau and Jacob. Now then, Jacob marries, going back to his uncle Laban. He marries Leah and Rachel, the two sisters, and has their handmaids, Zilpah and Bilhah. And then has the 12, which are then later known as the 12 tribes of Israel. as Jacob's name is changed to Israel. And so we have Joseph is key in that he is the one who gets them set up in Egypt. But Reuben is kicked out of the line. He's the firstborn, and he is kicked out of the line as being the promised seed, promised the royal tribe, because he slept with his father's concubine. So he was knocked out of that. Simeon and Levi were both knocked out of the line because they attacked the prince of the city-state of Shechem when their sister Dinah was raped by the prince of Shechem. And so they were knocked out of the line. So that leaves us Judah. Now then, what is not on this list is that Judah, who marries a Canaanite woman whom he is not supposed to marry, and he has 3 sons. And I'm trying to write this upside down, so bear with me. He has the son he has a son, I'm going to have to turn this around to write it, Onan, and he has the son Shelah. Is married to Tamar. Okay. Is wicked in the sight of God and dies. So then Tamar is pledged to Onan. Onan does not wish to have a child by Tamar because it will be considered Er's child. And so Onan, the Lord takes Onan's life. Judah does not want his son Shelah to be married to Tamar, to have to provide an heir for So Tamar uses the same type of trickery that Judah had used, that the other family members had used against their father, Jacob, the same type of trickery that Jacob had used on his father, Isaac. Now let's look back a little bit. See if I can't clarify this some. Remember with Esau and Jacob, Esau was the firstborn, and Esau despised his birthright and sold it for a pot of stew to his brother Jacob. But then when it came time for the blessings, when his father says, I don't know when I may die, I want to give you my blessing, and he told Esau to go out and to kill, to hunt some game, and to bring it in and to cook it for him so he could give him his birthright, to give him his blessing. Rebekah heard that. She loved Jacob more than Esau, so Rebekah advised Jacob. Jacob went and killed a goat. She took Esau's clothing, put it on Jacob, put some of the goat skin on Jacob to make him seem like a hairy man like his brother Esau. And so they tricked Isaac, and Jacob got his brother's blessing as the firstborn. So that is how, and so Jacob becomes the primary and Esau the secondary. All right. So then Jacob is then tricked by his children regarding Joseph using a goat, using his coat dipped in goat's blood, and with all their deception to make them think that Joseph is dead when Joseph is still alive. And he is sold into slavery. And Jacob is just beside himself in misery, thinking that his beloved son, his favorite son, Joseph, is dead. And that it is probably his fault because he's the one who sent him out to look for the brothers, knowing that the brothers did not like him. He does not, at this point, think that the brothers had anything to do with the death, but he knows that he sent his son looking for the brothers, and Joseph wound up dead. But just as Jacob used a goat to deceive his father Isaac. A goat is used to deceive Jacob about Joseph. Now then, Judah. Tamar uses a goat. Well, Judah is to give Tamar a goat as payment, but she takes the signet cord as a pledge. The cord, the signet ring, and his staff as a pledge. So, but the primary names, you have the twins of Esau and Jacob. You have the Judah and Joseph are the two primary names for right now. Joseph getting them into Egypt and will get them set up. Judah is the one from whom be the royal tribe. Tamar is the one who, even though her husband does not provide her with a child, Onan refuses to allow her to become pregnant by him. So she goes into Judah, tricks Judah into going to bed with her, and they have twins, which are Zerah and Perez. Zerah will come out, his hand will come out first, and they will put a red string around his hand, and then he will pull that hand in, and then Perez comes out. And Perez's name means breach. But Perez, we will find out later, is the one that is chosen by God to then carry on the line. So we will learn more about this later. We're having kind of a short lesson today as Tony is out, and we were listening to the chapters that we did not get to listen to last week. I hope you'll call in and ask for this sheet to be sent to you. And if you have any questions, please send those in. You can mail those in or call those in. We'll be happy to receive those from you. Let us close in prayer. Oh, dearest Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this time that you have given us to be together. We ask that you would watch over Tony and help her to recover from her headaches. Lord, we ask that you would watch over all of those who are hearing the story of your people, hearing our story of how your promised child would come to rescue us all from our sins. That we would take this into our hearts and souls and believe how much you love us, and that you would go to any lengths to save us and to be with us for all eternity. For it's in Jesus' holy name we pray. Amen.